Make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point. What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the Puncher's Point. Now, we already talked about Inoue versus Nakatani on May 2nd. However, that fight's going to be happening early in the morning. The good news is May 2nd is going to be a beautiful day for boxing because we got David Benavidez versus Zurdo Ramirez for the WBO Cruiserweight Championship. Now, I'm not going to lie to y'all. This is going to be a big fight for both fighters. For David Benavidez, he's taking a big risk by jumping up to cruiserweight, and I respect him for it. I respect him taking that risk and chasing greatness. And David Benavidez, he's a dangerous fighter himself, but 200 pounds, that's a different ballgame right there. And if you go look at what he was doing in the light heavyweight division, he had a fight against Vosdik. He went the distance with him, and Vosdik was past his prime. He had a battle with David Morrell, and David Morrell, to me, is more of a super middleweight, more of a 168-pounder. And then he had his fight with Anthony Yarde. Now, even though Anthony Yarde is a true 175-pounder, Anthony Yarde is definitely past his prime as well. So this is David Benavidez' first real test against somebody like Zurdo Ramirez, who is 48-1. The only guy he's lost to was Dimitri Bivol, and he went the distance with Bivol. He's never been knocked out, never been knocked down in his career. So this is going to be the opponent that's going to test David Benavidez. This is a big fight for Zurdo Ramirez as well, because everybody's counting Zurdo Ramirez out. This is a guy who's never been knocked out and never been knocked out, but they believe that David Benavidez is going to be the one to do it. And Zurdo Ramirez, despite being a cruiserweight champion, a lot of people are overlooking him. So the question is, can David Benavidez be the first person to knock him out? And that question is going to be answered on May 2nd. However, we got to get y'all ready for May 2nd. So with that being said, we're going to start off with the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. Now, when I look at David Benavidez's strengths and weaknesses, the first strength I got for him is he's got monster hooks. If I had to point to two punches, it would be the left hook and the right hook. And y'all have been in this podcast before. I have said that there's been specific punches that punchers throw, but the left and the right hook for David Benavidez, those punches are absolutely destructive. Every opponent who has stepped in the ring with David Benavidez, they were able to go rounds, but eventually they all ended up crumbling down. And David Benavidez is really good at constantly putting pressure on his opponents and constantly clipping them with those hooks. When David Benavidez gets going and when he finds out that his opponent is not going to fight back, it's game over. David Benavidez is the Mexican monster, and those are monstrous hooks that he got. And if his opponent gets clipped with them, it's going to be a quick night. Lightning fast hands. I mean, a guy who is as big as him, 168, 175, going up to 200, he should not have this fast of some hands. And he does. David Benavidez is an absolute monster. He's an absolute freak athlete. The guy's got power and speed in those hands, and that's what made him so dominant. I mean, the guy's 31-0 with 25 knockouts. He's gone in there against some really good fighters and has put the beating on them. And a big part of that is because I think they underestimate how fast his hands are. They know that he's strong. They know that he's powerful. But I think that they underestimate how fast his hands are, and they soon find out once he starts throwing those like 6 to 8, 10 punch combinations. David Benavidez, when he gets on a roll, he's really hard to beat. Uppercuts. He's very good with those uppercuts, specifically on the inside. Sometimes he'll even throw them as a lead uppercut. And I think with David Benavidez, I think when he starts throwing those uppercuts, you could tell he really starts getting into his bag. David Benavidez is that type of fighter that it takes him a little bit to kind of get the full tools in the toolbox and use them all. But once he starts using them, you start seeing the hooks, the straights, the uppercuts. And overall, this guy is really good at just putting the puzzle together as the fight goes on. He has a really good jab, and I think his jab is kind of an underrated tool in his game. He does a very good job of using that jab to start off the pressure, to initiate the pressure, to even find the range. And I think that David Benavidez does a good job of using that jab and keeping his opponents behind that jab. Frequent body puncher as well. I mean, this guy is not going to shy away to the body. Every single combination, it seems like he keeps on going to the body. David Benavidez is going to take what you give him. So if you want to guard up top, he will go to that body. But the thing about David Benavidez is he's very consistent about going to the body as well. He's not going to shy away from it. It's not like he's going to go take a round, he's going to go to the body, and then the next round he's going to shy away from it. Or it's not like he's going to start off that way in the beginning, and as the fight progresses, he's going to get away from the body. David Benavidez is constantly targeting that body, and he's constantly testing his opponents to go through deep waters with him. He's got decent movement for a guy his size. Again, as far as footwork, David Benavidez, I'm not going to say he has the best footwork, but he's very good at moving out of harm's way. He's very good at getting out of range, and he's very good at using that foot movement, using the movement that he has to frustrate opponents even more. He takes big risks, and he's constantly evolving his game. David Benavidez is constantly evolving his game. Every single time I see him fight, he's always working on something. He's always improved on something. I got to give David Benavidez a lot of credit for it. He's a student of the game, and you can tell that he's eager to learn new things, and he's constantly getting better at his craft. High punch volume, that's going to be one of the big things as well. David Benavidez from round 1 to round 12, he's got high punch volume, and he's not going to stop throwing punches. And if you put him in deep waters, he's going to throw those punches, and you got to be ready to deal with them. A lot of opponents aren't, and that's the reason why he's undefeated. Now, as far as the weaknesses for David Benavidez, I'm not going to lie, he's got a few. He's had a split decision win against, I believe it was Gavril, and you look at the David Morrell fight, there were definitely some weaknesses that were being exploited. First weakness, he's flat-footed. Even though he's got good movement, he is flat-footed. He's not that type of guy to, fight on his toes, and he's not that type of guy that is going to be elusive. Even though he's got decent movement, the footwork is still flat, and sometimes you kind of see him get stuck in situations almost like he's in quicksand. He gets too stationary, even though he's got some defense. Sometimes he gets too stationary. He gets too used to going punch for punch with these fighters. And even though he wins a lot of those punch for punch exchanges, he also takes a lot of hits as well, specifically in between his attacks. In between his attacks, he'll throw maybe like a 1-2 punch combination, and then he'll get clipped down the middle. And these are unnecessary punches that he doesn't have to get hit with, but he ends up getting hit with them anyway. He can get outboxed on the outside. You go look at the David Morrell fight. David Morrell did a very good job of outboxing him onto the outside and kind of forcing David Benavidez on an island at times as well. Wild swing. Sometimes he'll get hit with like a 2-3 punch combination, and he'll throw a wild swing, and the guy will be nowhere to be found. His reaction is to fight, and it's not to shy away. So if you hit him with a 2-3 punch combination, he's going to throw a swing. But a lot of times, if the guy moves out the way, it's a wild swing, and it leaves him open and vulnerable. He struggles with opponents who can stick and cut angles. David Morrell did a very good job of sticking him with that jab, hitting him with a straight, and also cutting the angle so that David Benavidez wouldn't be able to follow up with another attack of his own. Openings on the side of the body, I will say that is another weakness of his as well. He does leave the side of his body open. Y'all know about liver shots. You get hit in the worst place in the body. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to crumble to the ground. So I would like to see him protect his body a little bit more, kind of deflect some of those punches and not open up his ribs so much. He falls for traps. Again, there were many times where David Morrell would choose to go into the corner, and David Benavidez would try to lean forward and initiate an attack while he had him in the corner, and David Morrell would clip him in between exchanges and move out the way. Gavril did a good job of that as well, kind of trapping him. And you've seen when he knocked him down, he hit him with a check hook. David Benavidez fell for the bait, and David Benavidez hit the ground. So I will say he does fall for traps. And last but not least, feints and level changes. Gavril did a very good job of going to the body, going back up to the top, hitting him to the side of the body, forcing him to kind of lower his elbows just a little bit to where he can clip him up top as well. Gavril did a very good job of going from top to bottom, and David Benavidez struggles with those types of attacks. So as far as David Benavidez, he's got the power, he's got the speed, he's got the combinations, he's constantly evolving. He is a good fighter. However, there are weaknesses that he's still trying to clean up, and I think he will clean up some of these weaknesses, but they're weaknesses that still remain, and I think they're weaknesses that are going to have to be corrected in order for him to beat Zurdo Ramirez. Now we go to the champion, Zurdo Ramirez. Now, what are the strengths and the weaknesses for Zurdo Ramirez? Well, the first strength is he's a consistent body puncher. Zurdo Ramirez, I would say he's even more of a consistent body puncher than David Benavidez, because Zurdo Ramirez is constantly going to the body, but he's throwing combinations to the body as well. And it seems like he favors going to the body more than he favors going up top. Another guy with decent head movement. When Zurdo was fighting at like 175, he had decent head movement. He was very quick. He was very elusive. And that's what I liked about Zurdo Ramirez. And he still got head movement. It's decent, but it wasn't as good as he used to be. That's why I said he has decent head movement. Not great head movement, decent, but it's still a strength of his. He's got a good jab, just like David Benavidez. You could tell that he really sets up a lot of those straights with the jab, specifically that straight left, which is another big punch for him. And the thing about Zurdo Ramirez is constantly punching. He is constantly on the attack, and he is constantly going in there and bringing the fight to his opponents. But he's also a very good boxer. He's a very underrated boxer, and I don't think a lot of people give him the credit for how good of a boxer he really is. He's a very elusive fighter. He knows how to use his head movement. He knows how to slip a lot of punches. But at the end of the day, he also knows how to attack as well. He's got a very versatile left as well. I mean, I've seen him throw it as a straight. I've seen him throw it as a hook, as an uppercut. I've seen him go to the body with that left hand. That left hand is definitely the hand that Zurdo Ramirez favors. However, even though he can throw with the right, I will say that the left hand is definitely his bread and butter. And I think that even though his favorite punch is the straight left, you also got to watch out for that uppercut, that hook. You got to watch out for when he ends up going to the body with that punch as well. So I do believe that Zurdo Ramirez uses that left hand very efficiently, and he's used it very efficiently throughout the years to knock out a lot of opponents to become a cruiserweight champion as well. And then last but not least, that right hook. He's got a very good right hook, and when opponents are pressure, when they're in trouble, he really loves to throw that right hook. He loves to throw as a check hook as well, so I think that that's going to be a punch that he could potentially use against David Benavidez as well. He has lost to Dmitry Bivol. He recently has had a very close decision to another fighter as well who wasn't even on the same level as David Benavidez. So what are some of these weaknesses that Zurdo's dealing with? Well, first of all, he's slowing down. He's not as fast as he used to be at 175. I like Zurdo better at 175, but he went up to 200, and now you start seeing him slow down a little bit more, especially with age. The other thing as well with Zurdo Ramirez is he struggles with fighters who can stick and move. Now, David Benavidez, again, he has his moments where he can stick and move, but he's not an elusive fighter. But if David Benavidez can improve in that area throughout training camp, I feel like he's going to have a good chance of beating Zurdo Ramirez pretty decisively. His stance is too wide and he leaves his body open. Again, Zurdo Ramirez is that type of guy. Even though David Benavidez leaves the side of his body open, Zurdo Ramirez has a wide stance, so the middle of his body's open as well. It's good for jabs and it's good for straights to the body. Bivol did a very good job of that. Jab and range control, he struggles with that. He struggles with fighters who can do that. And you saw with Bivol. I'm going to use Bivol a lot in these examples. Bivol was really good at sticking that jab and controlling the range and forcing Zurdo Ramirez to not punch back because he was afraid of getting counterpunched. Sometimes he leaves his head on the line when targeting the body. He leaves his head straight when targeting the body. And again, I mentioned David Benavidez, he's got brutal uppercuts, and he's very good at using those uppercuts and picking the moments I want to use them. So if Zurdo Ramirez ducks his head down and he loses some leverage and his head's still on the line, one uppercut is all it takes. So I think that's going to have to be a thing that Zurdo Ramirez is going to have to watch out for in this fight. He's going to have to control. He's going to have to get better at. He can shell up at times, and he could back himself up into a corner. And that's the last thing you want to do against David Benavidez, because David Benavidez just pushes his opponents on those corners, pushes his opponents on the ropes. And if Zurdo Ramirez is going to put himself in those situations, he's not going to have a chance. And last but not least, the straights and jab combinations. Those 1-2 punch combinations are going to be very hard for Zurdo Ramirez to counter because he's struggled with that throughout his entire career. That's how guys have been able to land combinations on him. That's how they've been able to open up the body. That's how they were able to control the tempo at times against Zurdo Ramirez as well. So as far as the strengths and weaknesses, again, Zurdo Ramirez, he still is a good fighter. You know, he still is that type of guy. He's got a lot of heart. He's got a good chin, never been knocked down, never been knocked out. So he's going to give you a fight for sure. He did it with Chris Billiam Smith. He did it with his last fight. He's going to give you a fight. He's not going to give up. But the thing about Zurdo Ramirez is, even though he is a decent boxer, he's also slowing down when it comes to age and as he climbs up the weight classes. He doesn't have the same amount of power that he used to. I mean, the last 5 fights that he's had, they went to decision. That could potentially help him in this fight. But at the same time, you're going to need some power to fend off David Benavidez as well. And so we go to the keys to victory. What are the keys to victory for David Benavidez? Well, if I had to point to the first key to victory, I would say establish the power and the speed early and create pressure. That's how David Benavidez is going to win this fight. If you can create the pressure early and you can force Zurdo Ramirez back and you can force him in tight situations, if you can make him feel your power and make him feel your speed and you can intimidate him that way, I feel like early in the fight, David Benavidez can collect some of those early rounds and he can also go in there and start developing his game little by little as well. The second key to victory I have is stick the jab and control the range. Like I said, Zurdo Ramirez, he gets put on an island a lot when a guy can control a jab, keep him behind the jab, and also hit him with those straight punches. And then the body's going to open up and you can take advantage there, which is my third key to victory, which is consistently land to the body. If you can do that, you can probably tire out Zurdo Ramirez in this point of his career. You can slow him down even more, even if you don't tire him out, and you can take over the fight. So if I had to point the 3 keys to victories for David Benavidez, those would be the 3 right there. The first key to victory that I have for Zurdo Ramirez is use head movement and catch punches on the guard. Now, Anthony Yarde did a good job of catching those punches on the glove, not taking too much damage. The problem was Anthony Yarde wasn't throwing punches back, and that's why he was losing some of those rounds. But he did a very good job of catching those punches on the guard. What I want to see from Zurdo Ramirez, I want to see him use that head movement more and catching them on the guard, but keep your hands up, keep your elbows tucked, and catch those punches on the guard just in case you can't move out the way. If you can do that, I feel like you can limit a lot of the attacks that David Benavidez is going to be throwing his way. The second key to victory that I have is land punches in the middle of his exchanges. Like I said, Benavidez, I mean, that guy is a tank. He's going to keep going forward. He is the monster. He's going to keep on going forward. But he does leave himself open, especially in the middle of those exchanges. He leaves his head on the line and his guard is open, which is a perfect time for Zurdo Ramirez to slip some punches, catch him on the guard, and clip him with a punch that could potentially hurt David Benavidez as well. David Benavidez has been knocked down twice in his career. So again, it is possible to do. So I think that Zurdo Ramirez is going to have to land in the middle of those exchanges and force David Benavidez to reset. And last but not least, use level changes and set up traps. I think that's going to be a big thing as well. Kind of working your way back, forcing David Benavidez to throw punches, throw wild punches, and clip him with something that he's not going to expect coming. That's why he was able to get knocked down by Gavril, and that's why he was able to get knocked down by David Morales as well. So if I had to point to the 3 keys to victory for Zurdo Ramirez, I would say he has to rely more on being a boxer, being elusive, but at the same time limiting damage as well. I think those 3 keys to victory are the best way he's going to be able to do that. David Benavidez is a minus 430 favorite, while Zurdo Ramirez is a plus 300 underdog. These odds are presented by FanDuel, and they are subjected to change as we get closer to the fight. Now, the odds are a little tighter than I thought they would. I thought that David Benavidez was going to at least be a 500 favorite in this fight, but they shocked me. I'm not going to lie. So the question is, who do I have winning, and should you bet on the underdog? Well, the way I see the fight happening, I think David Benavidez is going to take control early. I think he's going to show that he's also one of the best fighters in the world. I think he's going to actually thrive in the cruiserweight division. I think that he's going to do a good job of outboxing Zurdo Ramirez. We might even see some new things. We might see David Benavidez be a lot more elusive. And I think Zurdo Ramirez is going to hang in there because he's a really, really tough guy. But I think what's going to happen is as the fight progresses and as we get to the later rounds, David Benavidez is going to start pulling those tools out of his tool bag. He's going to start using that uppercut, those straights. He's going to start being elusive. He's going to start playing with his food. And I think that eventually what's going to happen is I think that Zurdo Ramirez is going to crumble under the pressure. I don't think he's going to get knocked down, but I think that the ref is going to see him taking too much damage and he's going to stop the fight. So if you ask me who do I have winning, I got David Benavidez winning by, I'm going to say 9th round TKO. I think he's going to go in there. I think he's going to give Zurdo a fight. I think Zurdo will have his moments, but I think that David Benavidez is going to be too much for him. And I think that when it's all said and done, David Benavidez is going to become the new WBO Cruiserweight champion. And then we can finally get some of those big fights in the Cruiserweight division going as well. But I got David Benavidez by 9th round TKO. So with all that being said, it's time for us to log off. Again, David Benavidez versus Zurdo Ramirez for the WBO Cruiserweight Championship. Can Zurdo Ramirez retain his belt, or is the Mexican Monster going to take over the Cruiserweight division? There's going to be a lot of questions that are going to be answered in this fight, and I can't wait to see it, honestly. I wonder if David Benavidez is going to be able to handle that competition at 200 pounds, and I wonder if Zurdo Ramirez is going to shock the world, even though he is the champion, and upset David Benavidez. So there's going to be a lot of things to watch out for, and this is going to be happening later on in the day after the Inoue Nakatani fight. So again, make sure y'all tune into that fight, May 2nd. And with all that being said, it's time for us to log off. Make sure y'all continue to tune into the Puncher's Point. Make sure y'all continue to tune into the YouTube, the podcast platform, all the social medias as well. And last but not least, make sure y'all continue to stay on point with the Puncher's Point.